All right, everybody, welcome back to 18 Outdoors. I bet y'all can't guess what state I'm in. So if you can see outside a little bit. Very pretty up here, but we're in New Jersey, right beside New York, right beside Pennsylvania. We're at Mr. Paul Putera's house. We're coming in here to check out these big bucks that he's got. Also, we're going to talk to Avery. How you doing?
Good.
Good. How you doing, Mr. Paul?
I'm doing pretty good.
Look at this wall back here. Some big bucks and pile after pile of antlers. How many deer have you taken?
Oh, I don't even know anymore. Lots of them.
Lots of them? Wow. So if you don't care, Paul, hey, he's a big buck killer. Hopefully the sound is doing good because I was behind the camera. But anyway, that is a very cool mount. So again, y'all seen he's had how many podcasts? You've done several podcasts. I mean,
I've been on a lot.
On a lot. So a lot.
Probably close to 20 of them now.
Wow. And you specialize in a lot of terrain stuff because up here is pretty much all terrain. A little bit higher elevation than like what we hunt at home. So, so if you don't care, start with one of these bucks. Pick one out and then just start telling us a story about how.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna say this one here is my biggest deer, and that deer I got in 2020, and that was the first day I ever went in for him.
Really? Now you say biggest, do you mean by weight or score?
Score.
Wow.
Score wise. Weight probably too, actually. Yeah, he would be weight too.
Weight too?
Yep. Yeah. He dressed at 220.
Dressed at 220.
Yep.
That's something else. So.
Yep, and I killed that deer. That was a swamp deer running rhododendron swamps.
Wow.
Yep. And that deer there, I had him on camera for probably 4 years.
Wow.
And he blew up to that. He was probably, I got his sheds laying here somewhere. I know I do. But yeah, he blew up probably 15 inches. So, and he was like one of the biggest bucks around. So I went after him that year, but it was the first time I went in after him. And I shot this deer on the ground at like 10 feet away.
Wow.
Chasing does.
Wow.
Yep. I'm sitting, I went in probably around 9 o'clock, and I set up for the deer. And I'm set up with a stand at that point. And I'm sitting there by the swamp, and I look and I keep seeing bucks running past me and going down to this swamp. So I'm like, there's got to be a big buck down in there on a doe or something locked down. So I climbed down and followed the action all the way down in the swamp, and he was out there crashing and roaring, chasing a doe through the water in the swamp, and I could hear him the whole time in the rhododendrons, but I could never see him. And then finally, after just following him along the swamp edge, just still hunting my way real quiet, just sneaking through, the doe came running up past me, and I let him have it at like 10 feet away.
Wow. That is awesome. What state was that in?
This one is New Jersey.
New Jersey. Wow, that's double white throat patch. That's real cool. So 10 yards on the ground.
Yeah, 10 feet.
10 feet.
Yeah.
Oh, that is awesome. So.
Point blank.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And then the best part is, I killed this deer 3 days earlier.
Wow.
And I killed this one in Pennsylvania. And this buck was the same thing. I killed it 10 feet away on the ground. And this was another one, a rhododendron swamp buck. And I'm working, I go into this place, and it's a new spot I've never hunted. But I was working a deer over there on the mountains on the another section, and he wound up getting hit by a car.
Wow.
So I couldn't go after him anymore. So I was like, well, I got to start completely over. I didn't have any other deer to go for. And I looked on the map. I'm like, what is the nastiest looking place I could find around here that would hold a big old deer? And I went in there. I put a spot on a map where I thought that the big buck would be. I walked in there, and what did I do? I jumped him out of a bed 3 days earlier. So I jumped this buck walking in, and I saw him. So I got on the phone. I called my dad. I'm like, I'm on a giant. I'm going to take a couple days off of work, and I'm going to try to kill this deer. And
I guess Dad was okay with that.
Yep. So I went back. I set up where I jumped them in the morning. Set up a stand. Waited for a while. Nothing came in. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get down around noon. And I started just kind of still hunting around, scouting, checking spots. That day, I didn't find him. And that day I didn't find him. So I kept going. Never set up for him in the evening or anything. Just kept walking until I felt like I might know where he relocated to, because it's a big swamp section that goes for a couple miles. You know, so I'm like, I don't think he's in this area anymore. I go to the following day, I go back in to another section that looked identical to what he was bedding in the day when I jumped him. All terrain wise, there was a big drainage that flowed down into the swamp. I'm like, it looks like a spot this deer would use. So I walk down in there. I get down in the area, and I'm looking. I'm like, this is it. I'm looking. There's giant rubs all over the place down in there. And what so happened? I look around the corner in the rhododendron. What do I see? This deer rubbing a big signpost. Wow. About 60 yards away, right where I wanted to set up. So I was like, well, crap. I knocked an arrow, and he's facing away from me, rubbing the tree, and I'm walking on that thick green moss all in the swamps, and I'm just going through the moss, and I get to about 30 yards from him, but it's still a tangle, and I can't shoot. Well, that sucker, when he gets done rubbing the tree, turns and walks straight at me. And I'm full draw behind a big tree, and he comes around the corner, and at 10 feet, I shoot him head on.
Wow. And
he comes crashing through and almost runs me over in the process. And he piled up about 120 yards away.
Wow. And that's a pretty buck. That's a real pretty buck.
This deer was aged at 7.5 years old.
Wow. Very unique frame, the way it is. That's square kind of boxing. So. Yeah,
very, very unique. But we have deer around here with this genetic still, because like this deer, this shed right here came out of that same swamp 2 years later. So this is probably one of his kids right here.
Wow. Yeah, that's probably right. So sweet. What about that big boy right there?
This one here, this is another I knew about a deer kind of situation and went in and killed him first time.
Wow.
This is another one.
Man, that is awesome.
I knew this deer was working this one area on the mountain, and down in the bottom of the mountain there's bean fields. But I knew that where that buck was, I figured out where he was crossing the road. I was driving the roads, right? And I found his tracks, a big set of three finger tracks, you know. So I go backtracking that deer up the mountain, follow them up through the slides coming down, got all the way up top to where I think that deer might be going. I pull up my map and I'm looking. I'm like, okay, there's a bedding point here. I got big scrape lines coming through this area. I'm like, that buck, if he's up here laying down right now, he's going to be bedded up on this big hogback ridge about 170 yards away from me. I get up in the tree, set up, and there's like around here, there's swamps on top of the mountains because we have these big springs all over the place. So I'm backed up to a little like spring swamp on the top of the mountain with this perfect pinch point coming off between another swamp on the opposite side, coming from that hogback. And probably an hour before dark, all of a sudden I hear deer coughing up there on the ridge, and here he stands up almost exactly where I thought he would be bedding, and he comes working his way down and hits the scrape line in front of me.
Wow. How close was he when you shot him?
About 30 yards.
Wow. That is awesome.
I actually got to sit in the tree that year.
You actually got to sit in the tree? Wow.
Yeah.
So, no ground hunting. So, that's a very cool mount right there. So.
Yep, this one here is the first big buck I ever killed.
Wow.
Yep, and that's from Catskills in New York State.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
How wide is he inside? That's pretty wide.
Oh, I think he's probably, I'm going to say 20 and a half, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good one. And this one was a 6.5-year-old.
Wow.
Also, so pretty much everything on this wall is 6.5 plus.
Wow.
On the big mounts. But yeah, this is the first deer I ever killed, and this was killed.
First deer ever? Or first big
deer I ever killed.
Okay.
First real big deer. You know, because when I was growing up younger, New Jersey, you can shoot 6 bucks a year.
All right.
And then we would hunt New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. So when I was a kid, I would shoot 6 little bucks in Jersey. You were allowed 2 in New York, 1 with a bow, 1 with a gun, and then you were allowed 1 in Pennsylvania. So I would fill all my tags like every year when I was a kid.
Wow.
On just little deer.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that. You were learning.
Yep, I did that a lot growing up, and then I shot ridiculous amounts of does too in the process.
Oh.
But yeah, so this deer was cool though, because this is the first time I ever went out on my own to find a deer.
Oh wow.
Yep, we found big sign not far from our cabin in a swamp, and I'm like, I'm gonna go set up for this deer opening day of gun season in there. And I went in there where he was down in that swamp, and I set up on everything, and he came through at around noon time, just doing his thing, and I shot him at 80 yards.
Wow.
Piled him up.
Wow. Okay, a little while ago you said that you didn't have a buck to hunt, so what kind of buck are you looking for, or what are you waiting on to make you go hunting? I mean, you got specific criteria, age or rack size?
I like to go for older bucks now. I pass up a lot of the stuff in this room now. I let go. So I don't even shoot them anymore. So
specifically age or body size?
I'm looking for big bodied older bucks.
Wow.
You know, I'd like to kill them 4.5 plus if I can, you know. But if I have the choice between going after a 4.5-year-old and a 6.5-year-old, I'm gonna go after the 6.5, even if the 4.5 is easier.
Well, define easier. What would you think?
Just like location, the difficulty, because around here we get some nasty winds with some of the terrain and stuff, and it's just more pressure in certain areas, so you get a lot of nocturnal bucks. And so if I got one that's running daylight and it's 4.5, I'm still going for the one that's nocturnal, but he's a lot harder to kill, you know.
Yeah. So when they're nocturnal like that, the best chance probably, I'm assuming, the rut or him getting kicked up or something. So.
I don't shoot deer in the rut.
Oh really?
Yeah, none of these deer are in the rut.
Wow.
They're all right at around Halloween, right at scrape time before the rut kicks off, or October or late season.
Wow. Just because they're wandering too much, you just don't want to do that.
Around here, the woods is so big. Besides roads, there's nothing to stop them. They just keep going and going and going.
Wow.
So during the rut, they could be miles and miles away.
So you're specifically setting up, say, bed related, I'm assuming, so.
Yeah, I finding they're not always entirely hunting specific beds as much as finding their core area that they live in at that time of year. And then I work through it, because like even then, like if this buck is in, say, 8 to 10 acre bedding area, big swamp or something, or a big laurel thicket, you know, some kind of clear cuts, stuff like that. If that deer's in that, he's not going to always be in the same place in it every day.
Right.
You know, so he'll shift around, and so sometimes you got to work him, and it takes a day or two to physically see him, or sometimes you get it right the first shot. You know. But
wow.
I try to set up and scout a lot of the deer ahead of time if I can, but some deer they just fall in my lap and I go for them. You know, so.
No, go ahead. Explain that. What do you mean by fall in your lap? So.
Well, I'll just hear that there's a good one in an area, and I'll go in and find his sign and work it out. You know, or I'll go in, like I spend a lot of time, like if I'm not on a big deer, I spend a lot of time looking for big tracks, crossing roads and stuff, something to start from. And then from there, I just follow the sign back and backtrack deer.
Okay. So when you think you found a core area, what specific sign are you looking for to say, all right, I know this is its core area?
A lot of it runs down to, like, if you go into an area and look at where everybody else is hunting and scratch everything off, you know, like I really pay attention to whatever everybody else is doing, and I look at spots that they're going to be missing, and usually most of these deer are coming off of overlooked places. They're not coming out of spots that you typically would find a big deer.
Wow.
You know, so if they're like points and stuff like that, because anything like that around here that's a good terrain feature, you're going to walk up into it and there's going to be a cell camera sitting there.
Well, everybody's done, from all the podcasts and stuff, everybody's kind of figuring that stuff out. So.
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like there's anything like anymore where just a classic big buck bed kind of situation anymore. Now it's just a real strange place that's off to the side.
Wow.
You know, sometimes it's way back, sometimes it's right there, real close.
Wow. Oh, you got a very, very impressive room. Oh, it's just, some very good bucks.
Yeah.
So, have you killed a big one with a longbow?
No, I've only killed does with the longbow so far.
You do longbow and recurve, I see, so.
Yep. I usually just use it for filling the freezer.
Filling the freezer. That's cool though. Crap. Yeah. Again, this is a very impressive house, and he's a very impressive hunter. And we've been messing each other back and forth for 3 years, probably, I guess.
Yeah.
Over stuff. So that's very neat, and it's real cool, and just, you know, to meet, you know, the people that you message like that, and just to see how they do it and see the mounts and stuff, and you know, just tie the stories and the messages into actual person. So
yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you letting me come out here. It just, again, this is just so cool, and man, that's a pile of that gum. Is them mostly sheds? Yeah, a lot of sheds in there. A lot of those sheds are connected to some of these deer up here on the wall still. Wow. A lot of these deer, like this set of sheds laying next to this buck, that's one of his sets, but I also have 2 other sets that are matching from that deer in that pile. Wow. You know, I shot him at 4.5 years old, but I started picking up his sheds when he was about 1.5 years. Right. You know? That's amazing to have that history with them. That makes it more special, I would assume. So. And a lot of my deer I do have some kind of history with. Wow. You know, a lot of them I hunt, I have some time behind them. Like this 10-pointer over here on the wall, I killed him late season with the muzzleloader. And that buck there, I have sheds from that deer all the way up till 5.5 years old when I shot him. Wow. I have every set of sheds from that deer. That's a cool rack too, where he lays flat, kind of. That was a neat deer. That was a snow tracking, and then I couldn't get him tracking because he kept
busting me, but I knew where he was, and I set up and I waited for him.
Really? Wow.
But I tracked that deer in the snow because he would always be coming through by my dad's house in the back by a big swamp, and I had a camera back there, and I would get him every night. He'd come out by the development, by the houses to feed, and I'd follow that deer 2 miles back into the swamps in the snow.
Wow.
And every time he'd come out middle of the night and then return, and he'd just hide out in this spot where you just couldn't get close to him.
Wow. So is he going in and out the same exact way?
Yeah, he was,
wow.
He just late season, just on a string.
Wow. Only like just a food pattern.
Just food pattern. The wow. Food pattern was, instead of a agricultural fields or anything, he was using a development. You know,
shrubs and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But he was coming way out of the big woods and going up by the houses.
Wow, that is cool. Yeah, that's a pretty neat thing about you be able to do that, track them in the snow every now and then. So that's you learn so much being able to track deer. Wow.
You take any radio collar study out there or anything, you're doing the same thing right there, watching the deer that you want to hunt. You know, I can get on a big buck and just follow him around.
Wow. And
just see exactly what he does, where he goes, where he prefers to go. I can watch him avoid other hunters' locations where you could see where he physically cuts downwind of spots and loops around other people, and they know where everything is in the woods, and they figure it out.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well,
I've even seen him walk around cameras.
Wow.
You see him walking straight line down a deer trail, and then that buck steps off and walks around the back side of a camera. Because he doesn't want the flash going off or whatever.
Or the noise or whatever, yeah.
He doesn't want it, so he goes around it.
Wow, so
that deer literally is going past the camera 20 yards away. But he just doesn't want to walk in front of it.
Right, don't want to be on a Hollywood star. So I'm assuming you probably do some of that even after season. You track them some after season?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, anytime I have snow, I go out and track.
Wow.
You know, and what I do is I find like, because I like picking up their sheds, so I'll go out and just track the buck around and see where he's going and learn his routes, and then when I want to go shed hunting, I wait for the snow to melt and I go out and I walk his routes looking for his sheds.
Wow.
And I usually pick them up after a while.
That's something. Yeah, that's real cool. I mean, again, very impressive. No, again, I really appreciate you letting me come out and let us stop by. I mean, I think it took me 17 hours to get here, but me and Kathy has done a little trip. So I messaged Paul the other day and asked him about stopping by, and he said sure. So, and I really appreciate it, and it's very well worth the drive just to see this. It's just, and it's a pretty part of the world too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people don't realize how much woods we have. Everybody thinks it's all urban and stuff, but it's not. Like thousands of acres.
And we drove through the Poconos, kind of cutting across, and that was real pretty too. So, again, appreciate it, brother. Thank you a lot. I mean, really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it. Hey, this guy is something else. Appreciate y'all. Look at his stuff. Check out you do some pictures and stuff. Check out any other podcast. You don't do any YouTube or anything yet, do you?
No, I don't do any YouTube or anything.
So, hey, but we appreciate him. And y'all know it's time. You know, we're getting ready to get them flat. Talking to these people, getting fired up. You know, looking at all these big bucks. Just gives you some more fire. Just getting, I mean, boom, 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 boom. We're ready. Hey, appreciate y'all watching. If you haven't liked, please subscribe, and we'll see y'all. We're getting ready to get them flat now. See y'all. Hey, everybody. Thank y'all for watching the videos. Well, again, we appreciate y'all's support. If you haven't liked, please like and subscribe. And you don't care if you haven't got one of our books, check out Amazon and get a book. Also, we got a link on there where you can, on our YouTube channel, where you can go on. We got a little store set up. Like if you're interested in any kind of merchandise, shirts and stuff, you can check that out. And we really appreciate anything like that. So, again, we appreciate y'all's support. You know, keep watching. We're gonna keep trying to share the outdoors and how we do some things, and try to help everybody that we can enjoy the outdoors. And you know, we do this for just basically because of the environment and the community that's involved and built around hunting. So again, we appreciate y'all. Like, share, and we'll see y'all again. Bye.